Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Billy Watson TV. It gives me great pleasure to have a first-time guest, although I was on her show just a few nights ago. It is Jacqui Deevoy. How are you doing tonight, Jacqui?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I've been a bit busy today. I did another interview earlier on, actually, talking on the same kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's been a busy day.
What's that kind of stuff? I don't even know what we're going to talk about. How
Oh,
do you
God,
know?
I thought you were going to get me talking about... Sorry, I'm just plugging my phone in. I thought you were going to get me talking about the whole Nicola Bulley debacle.
Well, it was I. This is, so I was actually going to ask you a little bit about your background first, because
Oh,
although
okay.
we've chatted a wee bit, I don't know that much about you. So where did you grow up, and how did you get into the whole freelance journalism gig?
Okay, I was conceived in Chiswick House grounds in 1961. My dad was only 17, and my mum was a little bit older. And I don't know, I can't remember which one of them told me that. I think it was my mum. Yeah, a bit too much information there. And and then, like a salmon, later in life, at the age of 18, I swam back upstream and ended up back in Chiswick again. And how did I get into journalism? Okay, I
You
was
didn't have
working.
a you didn't have a baby at 18 though.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
More wise than my old dad. Well, my young dad, he was only 17 years older than me, pretty much. So, yeah, so I did like various jobs like you do when you're young, and I was working at a film animation company, and we used to get Campaign magazine every week. And at that point, I'd been sending short stories to teenage magazines and getting them published just for fun, as a little sideline. And I saw an ad in this Campaign magazine for health and beauty editor wanted on Just 17 magazine, which was a new teenage magazine. And I thought, like, back then when you're, sort of confident and stuff, I just thought, oh, I can do that. A bit like the Catherine Tate character, just think you can do anything. So I
More
went,
like it's more like yours or Hughes. Yours or Hughes. Gives a job. I can do
yeah,
that.
that's exactly what it was like. So I went along to the to have an interview. About 200 people applied for the job. I remember the editor telling me. And I just thought, oh, well, I haven't got a chance. I've never done anything like this before in my life. But I kind of just blagged it. And then the editor rang me a few days later and said, oh, you're in the final three. And I was like, oh, my God, that's a bit scary. And then she rang me a few days later and said, oh, you're in the final two. And I was like, oh, no. What if I get the job? I won't be able to do it. Luckily, I didn't get the job. The other girl got it. I'm still friends with her to this day. But yeah, so she got the health and beauty editor job. But the editor said, "Do you want to come in and like just do a few days a week on the magazine?" And I said, "Well, I've kind of got a job really, and I've got a proper job." And she said, "Well, what do they pay you?" And I said, "Well, I'm getting £73 a week, which is what I was at the time in 1985." And she said, "We'll pay you £50 a day." I went, "I'm in."
Sold.
So much for loyalty to the other job. It's like, see ya. But then I started working there 5 days a week, so my wages like trebled overnight. Those were the days,
Yeah.
and it was such good fun. I'm still friends with a lot of the people from those days, and it was drinking, smoking, loud music, dancing. I don't know how we ever put a magazine out. Pop stars in there all the time, models. It was just like really, really good fun, and yeah, just lots of naughty, memorable times, and lots of going out. We used to like get in at like 9:30 in the morning, and then by about 6 we'd kind of be winding up, and then we'd go to the pub, and then we'd go to a nightclub down on Shaftesbury Avenue. The office was in Carnaby Street, and stay out till like 5 in the morning, get the night bus home with no shoes on, and then get up the next day to get the bus back into work for 9:30. Back in the days when you were able to do that, actually physically able to do it. But and I went from there to another magazine, and then
What kind of things were you writing about in Just 17? So you just
okay, just 17. I was writing general features. One of the ones I wrote to get me the job was an article about stress, and then a quiz. Are you stressed? And then what can you do about it, sort of thing. Lots of things about boys. I did horoscopes. I did quizzes.
Horoscopes.
Yeah. Well, I made quite a good career out of doing horoscopes. I did them for many, many years, and I had 10 columns on the go at once, just doing horoscopes. Yeah.
We're just making them up, aye?
Yeah, it was good. No, because it's actually really hard work to make them up, because if you're sitting there having to make them up, I felt I had to base it on something. So I'd studied astrology since I was about 13. I used to get books out of the library. I was a bit of a weird child, and sit there making birth charts for everyone I knew, but nobody wanted them. So I'd be saying to my friends, I spent 8 hours making you this birth chart and hand drawn it, and they'd go, oh, thanks.
No, but do you see that signifies?
So I've always been interested in that sort of stuff. So I mean, I was a strange child. I used to go to the library and get books out on the Holocaust. I still have books on my mum was like, "You're 9 years old. Why are you reading these books?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just like the pictures." And she was like, "They're really horrible pictures." I'm like, "I know." I was just like a bit weird. And then I used to get books out about, the afterlife and out of body experiences and near death experiences, and all the Edgar Cayce stuff, anything a bit weird and wonderful I liked. So that kind of fitted in. And I went on to write for women's magazines. Did teenage magazines pretty much until Just 17 folded. I think that was good. What year was that? Can't remember. But I was their fiction editor for ages. I used to edit their fiction pages for about 8 years. And I met the father of my first child there in 1988. He was an illustrator. He'd come up to show me his etchings, and we had a bit of a love at first sight experience, and then got together and had our daughter, who's now 34, I think. Yeah, 35 this year. Bloody hell. And yeah, so that, and I kind of worked occasionally for the mainstream newspapers, and I used to like working for all the spooky magazines, Fate and Fortune, Spirit and Destiny, It's Fate, all those sort of ones. And so if I had a good story that I could sell to the papers as well, I interviewed Doris Stokes, who was a very famous medium back in the day. So I had a good story about her, and then she died, sadly. But then I had a story that the News of the World bought it. So I just did occasional bits for the mainstream. I never really liked the papers. I didn't want to be a proper journalist, So it always makes me laugh when if people say, "Oh, you're a proper journalist," it's like, "Oh, really? I'm a complete imposter." But I'm sure a lot of people on Twitter would love to quote me on that. But but then I did get into doing a lot of stuff for the mainstream. And in the last 3 years, I kind of, because of the way things all went, I just kind of lost a lot of faith in the mainstream. My biggest story that I had, was the story about euthanasia that was being implemented in the care homes and hospitals in 2021 and 2020. Because I made the film in 2021. It's still going on, sadly. None of the mainstream papers would touch that. That's why
you sending stuff to them to try and get them to look at it.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm like it was onslaught. I sent it out the whole pitch to explaining what the story was about. All the evidence I've got to back it up. I've had case studies, people who are willing to be interviewed, and be identified, and I had meetings with a couple of the editors. And even though they were really, really wanted to run it at the time, at the meeting, saying, "Oh my God, this is the biggest story for decades, and it needs to be on the front page of all the papers," then they just went quiet afterwards.
Wow.
And so it's like there's some kind of I don't know, restriction or denotice in place. Then they're really not allowed to. It seems they're not allowed to even entertain the idea of running a story like that, even though they might.
So even the editor has somebody editing him almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, because the two that I had the face-to-face meetings with, they were quite high up editors. One was the news editor, and one was a medical editor. And we had long meetings, and they were definitely all for it. They went away with the big file loads of evidence, and they were keen to run it. And then they just very slowly backed away, It's like Homer into the hedge. That's what it felt like. I'm like, where have you gone? And then one stopped talking to me completely. He wouldn't even reply to my emails. And the reason I went to him in the first place is because he'd written a little story about it in July 2020, kind of touching on the subject. And I thought, he's the guy. I've now got more evidence to make his little story into a massive story, because he didn't have much evidence at the time. But you can still see that article. And he was interested, and then of course he then just stopped talking to me. So it's all a bit weird. And I've actually sent it out again the other day. Yes, when did I send it? Over the weekend, I sent it out to a broadsheet saying, "Are you ready to run this yet? It's been 2 years."
Aye.
So
I'm not expecting a positive response on that one.
no, but I speak to this person all the time. So she's an editor on one of the big papers, and she responds to everything that I send her. Apart from that, if I send her that, just nothing. It's tumbleweed. But anything else I send her, because they did run a few stories of mine in 2020. Well, the Telegraph ran 3 stories of mine in 2020 about getting my dad out of the care home.
All right.
Because he was put in a care home in just before Christmas 2019, and of course then everything began, and then he was a prisoner, and then he was getting really, really depressed. So I'm just making myself the same height as you there, so we matched. And then I went and got him out after he'd been in there 10 months. It was a nightmare because he was getting really, really depressed. He was like, why can't I get out? Why can't you come in? You know, it's awful.
It's disgraceful.
Yeah, and he had dementia, but very mild.
Were you aware of there was like the no virus? I mean, I talked to you quite recently. I think you were. I mean, you know some of it, but you're still catching up.
I was expecting it. It's like, you know, when it was announced in 2019, I was like, this is the point where they spring the killer virus on us. You know, I'm very awake to all this for a long time. I mean, my dad told me about the that the moon landings were a hoax when I was 7 years old. You know, when I came home from school and we saw the man landing on the moon, my dad's like, yeah, I don't think so. And then so we talked about it, and I realised that actually, of course, no one went to the moon. And so I've known obviously the 9/11. So I've been brought up to question everything. But I must say, one of the last things my dad asked me was stop asking me so many questions, which was quite sad. But because he was tired, and I was asking him how he was, and he was like, "Oh, it's too many questions. Stop it." And I said, "You taught me to do that." But, yes. So with the last 3 years, it's been a bit of a struggle with the mainstream, and I don't think they like me very much anymore. And so, because they wouldn't take that story, I made it into a film. Jamie from Iconic heard that, you know Jamie, don't you? He heard that I was struggling getting into the papers because his dad had interviewed me on one of his podcasts, and so Jamie said, "Do you want to make it into a film?" And I said, "That's a good idea." So off we went. We did it really quickly. So from the point we kind of decided to do it, it was done within a few months, and we had the premiere of it. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a really good film.
Yeah, I have seen it. Yeah. What's the name of it again, though? What's the name of it?
A Good Death? Question mark.
A Good Death. Yeah. I
mean,
it's basically for the audience. It's a lot of people who've had severe vaccine damage, and you're there interviewing them.
No, that's not. No, A Good Death is about euthanasia.
Oh, my dad's on that.
Yeah, you're thinking of Safe and Effective, which is put together by my friend Mark Sharman. No, A Good Death is about it. That there are personal stories, about people whose loved ones have been murdered in hospital and care homes, and sometimes in their own beds. So a lot of people, they start to watch it, and they, after about 20 minutes, they have to take a breather because it's quite shocking, a lot of it. And
well, basically, actually, you know, that's why I probably not watched it always in depth, because it's heavy duty. I did definitely put it on. You know, I can remember listening to it, and you know,
it's heartbreaking.
All these stories are hard to listen to. You know,
they are, and I've watched it 100 times because I was helping edit it, you know, so you actually see every tiny little bit of it over and over and over and over. But even now, if I sat and watched it now, there's always a bit that I cannot get through without getting really choked up. And it's when my friend Stuart, who is an amazing medical researcher, both his parents were killed in 2 separate care homes 6 days apart.
Oh my God.
And his story, just describing the double funeral and stuff. And he's a big, brave, tough guy, you know, and to see him, it was the first time on the film, it was the first time he told me the whole story, because he's so busy helping other people research and finding out things to help other people and to you know, to get this whole thing exposed, like me. But he wasn't doing it for any money or anything like that. He's just doing it because he wanted to find out what happened to his parents and get justice. Well, he knows what happened to his parents, but he wanted to get justice. And just to hit it, so he kind of used to skirt around talking about his own parents. But so on screen, that was the first time we talked about it. I've had hardly any criticism of the film. There was one woman who said, "Oh, they're all actors and it's scripted," and I'm like, well, they should bloody win Oscars if they're actors.
Exactly.
pretty good acting. And also, I don't think I could write a script like that. You know, I can write, but I don't know if I could write a script like that. You know, when you hear people's real stories, and you can see that they're coming from the heart.
I mean,
you
that's
know,
just it's just cognitive dissonance to the max, though, isn't it? No, people not believing that is ridiculous.
yeah.
Also, Abby Roberts, she put a thing out asking for people to send stories, and she put that into an ebook.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get past page 1 of that. It's just like fucking unbelievable what's going on. The minute chaos and death, and my dad's Matt's out there pretending he's a good guy. What the hell is going on?
I know. He's just unbelievable. I mean, he's a proper psychopath. You know, the way he can just like stroll around, walk the streets, go on the tube, swinging his arms like what? Like me? I'm lovely. He's totally deluded.
Sometimes he gets quizzed on the news channels, and you know he's defending it like he was following the guidelines or whatever, and you know blah blah blah. Nobody actually says, but Matt, there was no fucking virus, mate. Tell us about the virus. What is a virus? Explain to us contagion. You know what I mean? None of these guys get asked that question. It's just assumed that what they're doing is in the public health good, you know?
That's why journalists like me are a bit of a loose cannon. They don't want to get me involved in the mainstream. You know, so I did the stories about my dad and getting him out of the care home, and then I've done a few random bits and pieces. But I just thought I need to write about what's really happening. So I think the first story I offered them was in May 2020, and it was when I discovered that my dad had a DNR put on him, a do not resuscitate order. So my dad was like, you know, not much older than me. So he was 76 then when he was put in the care home. And I always intended him to be there temporarily, you know, but they all had other ideas. The council wanted his house back immediately. And I said, well, you can't have his house back because he's going to be out soon. And they're like, well, is he in a care home? I went, yeah. But as my dad said, he said, they're saying that, he said, because, you know, most people who come in here, they walk in the front door and go out the back door in a box. And I said, yeah, well, that's not going to happen to you, Dad. So we did get him home. So that was good. So, yeah, they like those stories. They were kind of very personal sort of stories about not only me just getting him out of the care home, but what happened when I got him home and how I couldn't really look after him and stuff like that. And so, yeah, they like that. But the DNR story, when I first discovered that was put on, I went to the Telegraph with that, and they said that they said they'd have it. So I wrote it, and then they left it for a couple of weeks, and they said they weren't going to run it, but didn't really say why. So I got that out onto an alternative news website, and loads and loads of people saw that. And it basically, that story had a whistleblower. I was talking to a whistleblower, a consultant cardiologist who worked in a London hospital, about not just the whole DNR thing, because blanket do not resuscitate orders were putting on pretty much everyone over 60 at that point, and also not only on what they consider to be elderly people, which is totally ageist, because they can get perfectly healthy, lively 80-year-olds, you know, but also put on people with mental health issues and people with autism and children. And she told me there was a young schizophrenic woman. She was about 30. They put a DNR on her. She'd just come in for some routine operation, you know.
Did they not announce? It was like, or everyone over 55 was DNR or something like that.
Yeah.
Something more.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And she also got onto the subject of organ harvesting, because a lot of these DNRs were being put in place for purposes of organ harvesting, especially on the younger people, you know, because that's big business, as we know. But that would take us off in a whole other direction. So I got that out, and a lot of people saw it. And then I thought, look, if I want to get these stories out, I wanted to get them into the mainstream papers, because they're the people who didn't know, and they're the people who needed to read the stories. But that wasn't happening. I think my first indication that they were not going to be interested in any of my old stuff was that on March the 19th, when the whole lockdown thing was starting, I think that was the 23rd, wasn't it? But around that time, I heard that the whole killer virus had been kind of downgraded to a not a high consequence disease. And so I saw that on the government website. So I thought, oh, that is brilliant news for people who might be a bit worried, you know. I'll get that into the papers, and then everyone will be reassured, and it'll be great for everyone, and they'll have it on the front page. Not to worry about, folks, it's all over. You know, the curve has been flattened. In fact, there never even was a curve. So I put that to quite a few newspapers, and none of them were interested in it. And I thought, well, that's weird, why don't they want to like reassure people and cheer people up? I didn't realise then that wasn't part of the narrative. Well, I kind of found that pretty quickly. So again, I got that one out onto an alternative news site as well. And lots of people saw that. And I wrote an article, a sort of catch-up article on that, because, of course, all the information about that on the government website has been removed. But the very clever editor at the alternative news website that I wrote it for originally, that was News Punch. My friend Sean runs that. And he had archived it all. So we put it all back up again in the more recent article. I can send you links to all the articles that I'm mentioning. And then I've done loads of articles for Iconic and loads for David Icke's site, and but it is kind of it's great to write for those sites, but at the same time it is a bit echo chambery, because you're singing, you're preaching to the converted, and still, most people who watch the BBC and read the newspapers still haven't got a clue what's going on. It's a bit alarming, really.
Yeah, that's my most frustrating thing. I'm working in a factory right now, and you just look around. I actually said to the young guy, who I think I might have mentioned to you, but basically he said he'd learned more from me in the past 2 days than he's learned in all of his school life. So, and I was just saying to him,
that's like your work here is done.
Well, we certainly got him inspired to look into things a bit more. I just was walking out for a break, and I just said, the scary thing is, you just look around all these people here as everyone's walking out. He says, none of these guys have got a fucking clue what's going on, and they really need to be thinking about more than what football's on the night or whatever. It's just so sad. And the echo chamber effect is frustrating, because even on YouTube, I got banned from YouTube, stroke of Vimeo, and all the censorship that people stand for as well is ridiculous. So all the normies or whatever, they're on YouTube, and you can't even put stuff that is not allowed on there. So we're living in a fascist dictatorship already. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. I remember talking about this back in because I worked with David Icke on the People's Voice, which was the channel he set up in 2013, and I remember we were all talking about it back then. That I remember doing Facebook posts in 2014 saying, you do realise we're all going to be censored soon, and we won't be able to have this sort of free speech. And everyone was laughing, going, "Don't be so ridiculous." Now I'm obviously, I'm either, well, people say to me, "Are you psychic?" And I say, well, no, it's just everything's so obvious. So you don't have to be psychic to see what's going on. It's all there in your face. But people are just, a lot of people are just happy to swallow what they're being fed and to believe what they're being told. But I'm not designed that way, and that's probably why I'm really annoying to a lot of people, because I'm like one of those annoying children who was always like, yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? But why? Asking loads of questions that no one can answer. So I like to look into things, and sometimes you don't get the answers. I do actually believe now that that I'll die not knowing half the answers to half the questions I've asked and want to know the answers to. But I don't know. So I don't, and also I don't think our brain can conceive a lot of the things that we don't know and don't understand about. It's not designed like that. So I don't know. But most of the stuff in the papers is questionable and worthy of being questioned. But if you dare do that now, it's like it's not just the censors that are policing you. People are policing you. Like on Twitter, that if you say something, if you dare to ask a question, then like I dared to ask. I was kind of thinking out loud, really, and just thought, this Nicola Bulley person, this was about 2 weeks ago, does she actually exist? I'm just wondering, does she actually exist? Because I don't see any evidence for that in the story that we were being given, and also in my looking around for myself. But this was like the first day I was thinking about it, really, and I thought, well, the thing is, if I tried to think of all the scenarios of how she could have gone missing based on the information we'd been told, and I just thought, if she existed, then none of this makes any sense at all. But if she didn't exist, it all makes perfect sense. Right. So
would you like to explain that?
Yeah, because all the scenarios, such as it was all a mystery. That she'd left her phone on the bench, and the dog was running around untethered, and she'd just vanished into thin air. Nobody had, I mean, there was no CCTV footage of her apart from as she was leaving her house, apart from that bit, even though other people were seen on CCTV walking the same route. So it's like, and then I was asking, well, did she ever go on that walk, Oh God, I shouldn't have asked that. My God, they unleashed the bots on me.
Oh God! So you think there's a lot of bots on there trolling and stuff?
No, I can recognise them now at 20 paces. So number one, they're 99% men, right?
Right.
And number two, when you click on them, they've got very few followers. And number three, they all seem to like football or cars. That's their main picture, their cover picture and their profile picture. It's a football badge, or something, or some footballers doing stuff. And all their if you glance down, it's all like sporty and things. So they're the bots, and I do get trolls as well who are just absolutely totally sucked in by they hear a sort of story like this, and obviously if it's a real story, it's awful, absolutely tragic. But I've got a bit of a built-in thing that I can tell if something's real or not, because if it's real, I'd be really sad. It would really get to me. It's like, do you remember all that horrible sort of ISIS stuff back in when was it, 2014, 2015, and they were putting up all those horrible execution videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was some I could watch and just think, oh, that's a green screen, that's completely fake. But others, I'm like, whoa, I'm not watching that, because you can feel, you know if something's real. But well, it seems a lot of people don't. They can't tell if something's real or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot to do with intuition and gut feeling and instinct. And a lot of people have had that beaten out of them, not literally necessarily, but metaphorically, they've had it beaten out of them because they've been told that not to trust that. Yeah. That's your overactive imagination, or that's you making up stories. It's not real. But and children have got a very good inbuilt gut reaction to things. If they sense that a person isn't a very nice person, and they know, like little animals do as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of people seem to lose that over the years, and by the time they're adults, they're really kind of a bit lost because they don't have that ability anymore. But for some reason, I still seem to have it. If I can sense walking down a road if I need to cross the road because something's going to happen, or that there's a dodgy person, I can behind me even I can sense it. I can feel if someone's looking at the back of my head. I'm like a tiger. I was born year of the tiger. They sleep with one eye open, and they're very aware of what's going on around them. So but yeah, and I think that's obviously a lot to do with the education system and of course the parents. So if the parents have grown up not without that ability, as a lot of them do, then the kids aren't going to be taught to trust their gut feelings either. So, but yeah, because I'm often asking that question, as a lot of us are, how come we can see it and they can't? I don't like to divide us into we and they, but there do seem to be a lot of people. And there's also people who don't really think things through. They just parrot stuff that they hear. In 2021, I was chatting to a woman in the street because we both had similar hats on, so we just were admiring each other's hats like you do. And then we got chatting, and God knows how we got onto it. Depopulation, that's just the way my conversations go. And she was like, "Oh, that's such a good idea. That's a brilliant idea. That is, I really agree with that." And she said, "There's too many people on the planet, too many resources being used up." And I said, "Okay, if you agree with depopulation, how would you implement it? Because there's only a couple of ways that you can actually depopulate. One is by killing the people who are already here, and two is by stopping people from being born. And so how would we go about that, do you think?" And she was like, "Oh, I never really thought of it like that." I never really thought about it, but just like the sound of it. And there are a lot of people like that, and a lot of people who don't want to hear stuff, and I don't blame them. There's a lot of people I know who just put their hands over their ears and go, "Oh, no, I can't cope with that right now. This is happening in my life, that's happening." Maybe are we lucky enough not to have terrible things happening in our life, so we've got this space to think about all this dreadful world stuff, or are we looking at that to avoid looking at our own personal lives? You know, so we're looking kind of out there instead of in here. I don't know. There's lots.
Well, there's a lot of this. I think we're kind of engaging in it by talking about it, focusing on them all the time. We're just sustaining their reality. Whereby, if we all switched it off, got back to our communities being, solid, and like, because I've been talking to a guy recently who's going into the. In fact, I'm interviewing somebody who is connected to you. I'll tell you just now. Sarah Salyers.
Sarah is the other granny.
Exactly,
so,
aye.
Do you know Sarah? Oh,
well, I'm interviewing her on Thursday about Scottish sovereignty because this is the idea of these people, the people being the government. But yeah,
she's brilliant. She is so clever. She talks to me, and it's just like all of my head. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're too clever. She is the other granny. So my daughter has got a child who's he's nearly 6, and she's my daughter's partner's mum. So she's the other granny. I actually wrote an article when the baby was first born. It was like, yeah, nan wars. Who's going to be the best granny? And she's won hands down because she lives in Scotland. They all live in Scotland, so I hardly get to see him. So she's but
is that why you're moving up here, or thinking about it?
Yeah, no, I have been thinking about it actually. Yeah, just for a change of scene and can be neighbours with you. And my daughter's my daughter's a journalist as well, and I thought it'd be kind of nice for her and me to set up an office if she could bear sitting next to me all day gabbling on. Yeah, I just thought it might be a nice change and spend more time with Sarah. Oh, it's brilliant you've got her coming on because I've been saying to her for years she should do some interviews. So
she's involved with Salvo, and I've seen her do quite a few chats, even from her car and stuff like that. I've been catching up on her stuff just the past week. But the point was that when I was interviewing this Bry, he believes that the people of Scotland are the rightful government. Basically, we just need to claim it. The referendum was a massive fraud because there's still going to be, the Queen in charge, the Queen of England. And we're essentially a colony, and we don't realise the position we're in, how shafted we have been. And there's like in the past, in the 70s, and there's certain parts of Scotland the police couldn't get in. So they went and gave heroin to everyone. And then people started, crime and all the rest of it goes on. People call the police, and that's their invitation into these neighbourhoods. So then they destroyed the communities, destroyed the families, and now they're coming after the people, So it's basically, when you actually look at what's happened and the evilness and the planning of it, people do need to be their own government again and become sovereign and take control of their communities, because we're all sitting in these boxes, isolated from each other. You don't know your neighbours, And again, the immigration is, especially in England, I guess, where you don't know because of the foreign cultures. That's all part of it as well. You don't, it's different mindsets, and it's hard for them to mix properly,
Yeah, I mean, Sarah is brilliant talking about all kinds of stuff like that. She's really fascinating. So that will be a good show. When's that, on Thursday?
That's Thursday, yeah. Well, she's still to 100% confirmed because she's a bit of a stomach bug, but anyway, hopefully she'll be okay for it.
I'm going to I'll give her a call when I've stopped talking to you and tell her. She's probably keeping it secret because she probably doesn't want anyone to see it.
No, she knows. Basically, she's going to give me a picture of the night, and we're going to make a profile pic and put it out there. So I'm really, really excited to talk to her because the work she's been doing is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah,
it's really, really amazing. So the whole Scott Salvo thing, I've just become aware of it. I don't know if you're aware of it, but
no, I don't. I'm not very up on the whole Scottish politics. So,
but the guy William Katie has been doing a similar kind of thing, talking about that constitution. Aye. Yeah. So I think that's all these protests to me are a waste of time. You're begging, or all the government's doing is letting you have a wee moan, but you're essentially still enabling the system. Whereby if people strengthen their communities in England, go right back to the original constitution. Yeah. And that's where the answers lie, I think, us looking back in the ancient to see the fraud that's been committed in the past 200-300 years.
Yeah.
So that we can go back to the rightful thing. People should have the land, not this fucking group of oligarchs or whatever sitting in their offices.
I know.
It's fucking ridiculous.
What's quite alarming is, like I was saying this the other day, that a lot of younger people they actually don't realise that the government are supposed to be working for us. They actually believe that the government there are to control them. They actually believe that. So imagine what the generation after that are going to think, you know.
Well, it's like China. People, you know, the Chinese just go along like a robot. There's no soul left. There's no fights. Completely beaten out. Just an ottoman.
Yeah, yeah. I bet laughing will be made illegal soon.
Oh, it's ridiculous. One thing after another, you know. Just the insanity of life gets more amplified every day. Like Sam Smith and fucking Fisher them. Fuck off.
Yes, he got that wrong. He got it completely wrong because man and woman, fisherman, fisherwoman, they're not pronouns. He meant fisher person.
Right,
so
aye, true.
Them, it's just like
that's right, aye.
I'm a bit, I get a bit het up on grammar and stuff, but it's it's absolutely getting too crazy out there for words. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, with the Nicola thing, you said that basically she's more believable not, but now they found the body or a body apparently. What's your whole story, the whole thing, if we start to finish?
To date, from when I first started looking into it and questioning her existence, that first tweet I did about just does she exist? It's had 726,000 views, right? That tweet, and I just thought if anyone knows her, just say I know her, and here's a picture of me with her at a party or whatever, you know. Nothing. I've got quite a few people coming forward saying, you know, oh, a friend of a friend, or you know, like I said earlier. Sorry, I've done several interviews today, so I don't know if I've already told you. But yeah, just things like, you know, thrice removed, basically. So a guy said to me today that he used to play golf with a man whose wife said she used to know her, and then someone last night said to me, my cousin knows her, and I said, oh, well, that's the closest I've got, you know. And I said, would your cousin like speak to me? And she said, no, she's absolutely distraught, you know, I'm not going to kind of intrude on her grief. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. But so there's still nothing. But like you say, they found a body. They've told us they found a body. They've told us they found a body, right? So, and everything, all the information we've got is what we've been told, unless you've personally gone there and looked for yourself, which I haven't, and unless you've actually interviewed people. All the interviews we've seen, you know, are all weird. You know, seems she's only got one friend, that woman who turns out to be a bit part actress, Emma White. The husband, well, that was what piqued my interest initially, was that I caught a glimpse of that first interview that you did, and I just thought all my spidey senses were saying, well, why is he lying? What's he lying about? You know, he's lying about something. And I was thinking, well, is he? I couldn't work it out initially what it was, but he was incredibly uncomfortable and not acting like a normal person would in that situation. I'm not saying he should be sat there in floods of tears, because people are in shock sometimes when that sort of stuff happens, and they don't react normally. But you know, I can tell if someone's lying, and he was lying and acting badly. And then we started to see the interviews with her friend Emma Wyatt. Terrible acting, absolutely dismal acting. She had a part in Line of Duty apparently, but yeah, I don't know if she'll be offered any more work. But there was you know, there's all sorts of information come forward. I'm not saying categorically she does not exist, because I don't know, but I can't. There's been no evidence of it at all. Not one time. People say, "What about all the people in the village?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I haven't spoken to all the people in the village. Maybe if I went there and spoke to them, but I'm not being paid to investigate this story. I'm not. A mainstream newspaper hasn't asked me to investigate it. I'm just mulling it over on social media. But that is not allowed. Oh my goodness, that is not allowed. No. So
in these kind of stories, so you have to ask yourself, why her? Why this one story? You know, all these people go missing every day. So you know that's suspect, if you ask me. Why are they doing this? Even it's a case to try and, I think, missing people, get people a microchip and they'll never go missing. You know, we've always got some kind of alternative.
Yeah, if the story's invented and if it's a campaign of some sort, it could be a campaign to push, say, the chipping of human beings, saying, oh, you know, if she was chipped, we would have found her immediately. You know, they already chip our pets, you know, so the next thing will be probably chipping children. They've been pushing that since the Madeleine McCann debacle.
I think somewhere in China or something are doing it already at birth. Some places.
I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. And also the 15-minute cities thing that we're all very aware of. Although your average person, I went out for a curry with my neighbour the other night. She's 76, and started talking to her about 15-minute cities. She said, "Oh, what's that? What's that? I haven't heard about it." She watches the telly all the time and she reads the newspapers. And she said, "Well, that's not been on the TV and it's not been in the newspapers." And I was really surprised. I thought everyone had heard about that, you know. I'm obviously not moving in normal circles anymore, but yeah, and so most people aren't aware of that. And obviously, the other thing is the online harms bill. So and that's all coming out now. Now they found the body. The news channels, Sky and ITV, are being criticised for the way they hounded the family. In the old days, that was called journalism. You'd go to people's houses, you'd knock on the door, and you'd ask them some questions. Now it's, oh, that's terribly, you know, intrusive. Yeah, and you can't do that, you know. And the family have complained about it. I don't think that the news channels have been very, very clever actually about it at all. But you know, if you're a journalist, that is your job to kind of like ask questions and get in the way, you know, and be those pesky kids from Scooby-Doo, you know, that everybody hates, you know. But now, what they're going to do, and they arrested 2 people last week because Nicola Bulley's Facebook page was left public. Because I was on it and looked at, and there were thousands and thousands of comments, and some people were writing nasty things, and 2 people got arrested for malicious communications for doing that, and that was deliberate. Why on earth was the Facebook page open with pictures of the 2 small girl children exposed when the dad is saying in all his interviews, "I need to protect the children and make sure they're okay," and there they are for all to see, completely unprotected on social media. And then it got me asking, well, who are these children? Are they like the Obama's children? You know, have they come from elsewhere, or are they? Do they exist? You know? And then there's rumors. There's lots of rumors. Obviously, I listen to them all, but I don't believe most of them. But you know, there's rumors that the children are her sister's kids, and that they don't actually have any children. And then you see all these photos that have clearly been doctored and endless pictures, perfect selfies of her that look actually a bit like AI, you know, and a lot of the selfies are the same face but on a different background and the exact same picture, you know. And then you see pictures of her and him together where the shadows are wrong, the lighting's all weird, the heads are all out of proportion. She's got the head the size of a small child's head, and he's got a huge giant's head, you know. So, now, if it's all, I'm able to talk about it like this it's not emotionless, but I genuinely feel that it's been some kind of campaign. Either they've used a real case to carry these campaigns, or it's an actual Trojan horse to bring in this stuff. And I don't think that that whoever orchestrated this plan, let's say it is a campaign, I don't think they realise that there'll be so many armchair sleuths and so many questions asked, so many inconvenient questions. And I think they might have just thought, hang on, this is all blowing out of all proportion. This, you know, let's just shut it down. Oh, we found a body. Yeah, it's definitely her. And oh, yeah, we'll probably hear it was suicide now. And that's the end of that.
Moving on swiftly.
But I came up with another theory last night. Everyone's going to hate me for this as well. Imagine if it was an orchestrated campaign, and imagine if they employed these limited number of people. So it would be, let's say she exists, it'd be her best friend, her husband, and her sister, and her 2 parents. That's only 5 people, right, for the whole campaign, because we haven't really seen anyone else speak apart from a random neighbour or a dog walker here and there. Also not very convincing. So imagine because there was an advert put up by an agency up in Lancaster looking for people to be, and in particular a bearded man, to be part of a campaign. This was in June 2021. So let's say that was them advertising for this campaign. Imagine if it was all going ahead quite smoothly, and suddenly she, the Nicola one, suddenly thought, you know what, I don't want to do this. Because someone found out yesterday, they looked at her Twitter profile. She follows 20 people, and a lot of people she followed out of that 20 were kind of anti-vax people. They were people who were questioning the narrative. She was liking a lot of their posts. There'll be people on that short list that we would know as well. and she was only being followed by 14 people. I went to try and find it today, the Twitter profile, but it seems to have gone. But maybe I didn't look hard enough. I don't know. But it was definitely up the other day because someone got screenshots of it and sent them. But so that's interesting. Imagine if she just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah, I thought it was a good idea, but I don't want to do it anymore. What would they have to do then? What if she threatened to expose what was going on?
Yeah, I mean, God knows what's going on in these kind of circles. I've no idea. I know there's definitely corruption and blackmail and all the rest of it. I know they could give her a life somewhere else. You know, I'm sure lots of dead pop stars are living somewhere else quite happily.
Well, yeah, maybe she existed. Maybe she's now been put somewhere else to play out this role, and then the family will go and join her afterwards. But when it's all quietened down, sort of thing. Right. So we just don't know. I mean, like I said, I have got a busy imagination, so I do like to think of all the possible scenarios. But the most I'm a bit of an Occam's razor person. The most likely scenario is probably the scenario that's been happening, and that's the one that I can't see any evidence for her ever having existed. So where's the statements from the school? Where's his family? Where's his parents and family? What about the sister? Does she have a husband or kids or anything? It's quite unusual because often in these cases you hear all about extended family, and there's endless news stories of, I used to be her teacher, and and stories from friends and other relatives, and but there's been none of that this time, none of it. So it's only natural for me to ask questions, but yeah. And to all the people who say how very dare you ask questions, I'm like, how very dare you stop me from asking questions or try to criticize me for asking questions. But you do kind of these days put yourself in a poking your head above the parapet and saying anything these days, you get smacked back down again. But I don't know, sometimes you think, is it worth it? But you think, well, it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it, because a lot of people don't seem to be able to think anymore.
Sad but true. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I kind of want the powers that be to know that there are some of us who are capable of working out what they're doing and holding them to account in some way, shape, or form.
And that sets an example for others as well to do it. If nobody does it, it's like comedy that's offensive. The more and more people cut back and try and appease everyone,
yeah,
well, shit comedy's going to get, So you need those people to just keep on the edge for the sake of everyone, even if you don't like their comedy, whatever,
That reminded me of when I was saying about laughing being banned. I was going over to the Isle of Wight on the ferry in August 2020 with a friend, and we were like killing ourselves laughing about something, and everyone on that ferry had their muzzles on, right, apart from us, and we were like roaring with laughter over something, and everyone was just like glaring. Like I'm saying to her, be quiet, it's illegal to laugh, which would make her laugh even more, and everyone was literally just like glaring, and I was like looking and going, it's not illegal to laugh, I'm only joking, but everyone stopped laughing. Everyone has stopped laughing.
Well, no, but this whole thing, I think it's killed the joy out of society. I think it's had a massive effect that people don't actually, like 9/11 had an effect, and this other COVID thing's had a huge effect.
Yeah.
Just to see joy and happiness, there's a cloud over everyone, even though they might have went along with the narrative. The whole fact of locking down, wearing a mask and going through that shit show, I knew we're just coming out of it. It's left a damaging effect, I think. And
that's why it was good, that show up in that event up in Derby, because it was very irreverent and lots of filth going on. Even Katie Hopkins was getting a bit filthy, which was quite hilarious.
Calabria.
But yes, I forgot about that. And flashing her knickers all the time. I mean, it was funny. It was funny, but very un-PC, And the only bit of I said I didn't like was her rant about short men, and I was thinking, oh, that's not fair. But yeah,
because Richard Willett was standing to the side.
What?
Richard Willett.
Oh yeah, Richard.
Small, so I met him after it, and kind of were laughing. What about Kate Hopkins? And the shorty said, "Yeah, I'm used to it."
I know, yeah, I'm sure he's used to it. He couldn't care less, but at the same time, it's just I don't know. I know. Well, you can say that about anything, can't you? It's fine. I think you should be able to be allowed to joke about whatever you want.
Yeah.
I was saying to someone last night, you can't tell Jewish jokes. You can't tell jokes about black people or Asian people, but it's still okay to make really derisory jokes about Irish people.
Well, yeah, and ginger and Scottish, and there's these unwhite men, whatever. There's certain groups that's all right to target, but don't do the fucking black ones or whatever. It's the BLM, blah blah blah. Fuck off.
Yeah,
we're just mind controlled on so many levels. That's why I refuse to bow down to any form of political correctness. I just talk as I am.
Yeah.
And nobody likes it, but I'm not fucking changing. I can't play the game because you're not being true to yourself. And
I said something in front of it. I don't know if I said this to you on Friday, but I said something in front of a young person about transgender women entering sports, and said about a bloke can't just tuck his bollocks up his bum and say I'm a lady and join the women's swimming team. And he was like, I can't believe you've just said that. That's disgusting what you've just said. And I said, I'm only joking. I said, that is pretty much what he does, what this guy did there, And then, the person I was speaking to was saying, that's so transphobic. You don't know what these people are going through. And I'm like, I do. I've got trans friends, and I do know what they've been through and what they're going through. I've just made a comment because that is actually what the person did to enter that swimming race, because they still had all his bits and bobs and just had to tuck them away, But it's like you have to be like super respectful to nothing wrong with being respectful, but there's nothing wrong with joking either.
Well, this is the thing. In Britain, we've lost that sense of humour we've got. Just the Scottish people where we just rip the piss at each other. It's just this banner. And if you take it wrong, you're a fucking arsehole, so fuck off, It's basically life's too short to take seriously. Everyone's all serious all of a sudden, Oh, I can't offend that one, I offend that one. People that have emotional intelligence is the bottom line, They're all getting triggered emotionally, and you've not got a sane person when you've got emotions firing off. And like today, I was going in the car park, I was swinging around Tesco, and I'm quite far from this woman, but she sees me and then she slows down because I was going a little bit fast, just to make sure I go slow when she's walking. So, right, fair enough. I braked and slowed, and she walked in and parked my car. And I knew she would say something. So I get out, looks across. It's only 5 miles an hour in the car park. That's the limit. I was like, is that right? Aye, good. Go and tell the manager then. Fuck, But anyway.
Right.
Maybe she's trying to save me if I killed somebody,
Yeah, I've always supported freedom of speech, and that includes if someone wants to say nasty racist stuff, well, that just makes them look stupid. Crack on, I don't care.
Exactly. They make it fool of themselves.
It can incite me to do the same, It's just like, oh, who's that awful person?
Well, this is the thing. There's a character, for instance, Alf Garnett, and I did a comedy in Nob Stewart or whatever, and the whole point of it is to be an arsehole. Basil Fawlty, these people, they're not likeable people, but they're funny because you can see elements of that, some other people in them, or elements of yourself or whatever. And it's humanity, all out there. But we can't just be the perfect robot,
These days, with Faulty Towers, it's like, oh, what's that horrible man doing, smacking that poor little Spanish man, and he's being so sexist, pinching that woman's bottom, But it was like hilarious at the time. Well, it still is hilarious.
Well, it's a bit where the Major says, no. These people are wogs. They actually had to literally, when they do repeat that, they think they block that word out, But everybody knows the word, Or it's like when they beep things, and it's a swear word, so you think it, so you can think it, but you can't hear it,
Yeah. Can you imagine if they did a remake of Faulty Towers, but a PC version?
But do you not know they're going to actually do Faulty Towers is coming back? Do you not know that?
I saw it in the news out the corner of my eye. Is that why? Is it coming back?
John Cleese and his daughter are doing, I don't know, Faulty Towers 2 or whatever, but it's going to be, it's not, they said they wouldn't do it on BBC because they know they couldn't be like how it's supposed to be, but I don't know how much leeway they'll get or if they'll be able to match the original, But anyway.
Yeah, there's no way they can match the original. I mean, if you made that PC, 90% of the funniness would disappear, wouldn't it?
Aye, totally. That's why there's no good comedy on TV these days.
Do you know what I did watch recently? that I thought if I watch it again, that's not going to be as funny as I used to think it was when I was younger. Some Mothers Do Have Them with Michael Crawford as Frank Spencer, and I watched an episode of that. It was hilarious.
I thought about that the other night because I keep on sometimes saying to my girlfriend, "Doing Betty," or something stupid, and like she's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, Frank Spencer. She's like, "Who's that?" I was like, "I'll hate to show you." It's the one where he's on the roller skates. You see that one?
Yeah, I mean, he was quite a stuntman. But there's some comedy you think, oh no, I'm going to watch it and it's going to be awful, and there is some that you remember fondly, but it's actually terrible. But that I was pleasantly surprised that it was actually still really, really funny.
Right. Well, I would be surprised as well with that one, actually.
yeah. But I think were we talking about favourite comedians? Because mine's Tommy Cooper. And what I liked about Tommy Cooper was that he could actually make people laugh without saying a word. I saw a great video where he went to a school full of deaf children's schools, and they were killing themselves laughing just at his face. He just stood there looking around like he does, like what, and they were all like just killing themselves with laughter because he did. He didn't kill himself with laughter, but he gave a whole new meaning to dying on stage, didn't he?
Yeah, there's a movie out that I'm actually in. A comedian called, well, you hear my voice, Ian Cognito. He was a brilliant comedian. He never made the big time because he was too raw as well.
Yeah.
And I interviewed him at the Edinburgh Festival about that kind of thing. Why do you want to make the big time? And all the comedians respect you. Because he's the type to get 5 Guinness on stage and be mental and crazy and wild,
Yeah.
So but he died on stage, and there's a good movie about it that they asked me if he could use my video in the movie. So I've been in Cannes. It's won awards all over the world.
Oh really? What's it called?
I'll need to get the name of it. I'm not exactly sure the name of it, but it's a movie about Ian Cognito. I'll find it for you. Aye. Good name. It's a really good movie. It's on Vimeo, I think. But
yeah. Oh, good. I'm going to write that down so I can remember it. Ian Cognito. It's a great name. But yeah.
It's obviously a stage name.
Yeah. Talking of films, I'm doing a new film, a serious film. Maybe after this one, I'll do a comedy. I need a rest, but it'd be good to do something lighthearted after this last 3 years. Like I said, I never wanted to be a serious journalist, and I have been thinking recently that I just might try and write some books or go back to writing horoscope columns just to have a rest, or ghost stories,
Well, I want to do other stuff as well, but this stuff that's happening just now keeps dragging you back in because what else are you going to do? It's like a war on, and fucking getting pretty urgent.
Yeah, we can't do what we're put here to do. We have to be soldiers now. It feels like, and keep fighting because it's like we can't give up now because we're winning. That's what I feel. I do think we'll win, don't you?
Oof. Well, as I said to you, if we get on board with the Constitution and get really to grips and pump that idea to the max, I'm for dropping everything else essentially, because all the other shit is just us going round in circles. I want to get solutions, and to me, that is the solution in both countries, and we can set an example for the rest of the world. Especially Scotland. There's a limited amount of people here, and it's set up differently from England. You still can use it, but we the people could literally, if we don't vote, none of us voted, we'd be independent the next day. Because every 4 years you have to agree to be fucking owned. And then if we all went out in the streets and just says this is what the people want, that's it, done. We don't need any referendum and all the bullshit that was a whole shit show to give people the illusion that they were going to get free and stuff like that. And there's a lot of passion behind it. Then they got a kick in the balls and everyone's kind of forgotten about it. But that's what they're doing, these colonial masters, to hide us from the truth. They're never going to give it to us. So people have to learn that these things like the Declaration of Arbroath, the Scottish Independence Constitution, is in place. And we need to claim it and step up because we are the crown. The people of Scotland are the crown. Whereas in England, the crown is representing the people and looks after it a different way it works. So I think it's a good opportunity in Scotland. But again, when you look at the people and you look at the media control over them, how do you get this information to them? It requires a massive... The thing is, Sarah, who's coming on Thursday there, she's saying that once people get this information, it's like a light bulb goes on, and like it's not a hard sell. So we just need to get that in front of them. And that's where I see the focus should lie in getting to the source of all the fraud, because that's exactly what's going on, And these mafia guys, once we say we're the people, we can try our government and basically put them all in jail.
Are you saying that's more likely to happen in Scotland than in England?
I think if the will of the people was there, it's easier because we have a unique way it's done. We had, like, when Scotland and England had the union, there was like a get out clause that the Presbyterian Church put in there to say, if the will of the people, who are the crown, the Scottish people, say no, that's it. We are the ultimate power in Scotland.
Yeah.
But when we're voting for governments and when we're, tricked and all the rest of it.
Yeah. It's like you're asking them to represent you.
We're already free, and we're asking them if we can have an opinion poll on that's what a referendum is, to see if we want to be free. But we're already free. We just walk out the door and say we're free. End the story.
Yeah.
But it needs a big awakening. But Salvo, they're trying to get 100,000 signatures to do it by going to the European courts and asking, did we enter into a voluntary union, or are we a colony? And basically, either way, we should be able to get out of that.
Yeah.
But 100,000 people supporting it, first of all, that's the path they're going down. But maybe just the people in the street would be the simpler way, But again, it requires media. That's why they're controlling the internet and everything, Like that. I'm shadow banned to hell. I don't know about you, but it feels like.
Oh God, yeah. Well, do you know what's happening this afternoon? I was putting up a couple of tweets about the whole Nicola Bulley revelations of today, and they were being taken down immediately.
All right. I've seen a few dodgy things going on.
I did a little post about that, a little tweet about that, and someone said, "Yeah, I saw them flashing up and disappeared before my eyes."
Aye,
but they were about to have a look, and it was gone. I was going to ask, who do you think is going to slip into the wee plimsolls of little Jimmy Cranky?
I don't even look at any of them. There's one Asian guy, Muslim guy, saying there's too many white people in Scotland. The head of the police is white. The head of this guy, well, fuck off, mate. You know what I mean? I lived in Turkey. I didn't expect to go there and everyone to become white all of a sudden. You get what I mean? There's Scottish people ahead of this parliament. What the hell is going on here?
Oh, I saw him. Someone, isn't it? Yeah.
But there's other ones.
There's a funny video of him falling off a scooter. Did you see that?
It's a classic. It's worth a repeat. Yeah, I mean, there's a guy, Tommy Shepherd, who was owner of the Stand Comedy Club, who censored me back in the day. It's a long story, but basically, I've seen him. There's a guy in Parliament talking about, from the Alba Party, talking about Scottish independence, and this Tommy, basically, I think he's SNP, Tommy Shepherd. I don't trust any SNP at all after that Nicola Sturgeon. She's a complete traitor. That's outrageous, because all these people know exactly what Scotland, the people just need to stand up. They could come on TV and say, hey, Scottish people, rise up, we've got our independence. I mean, you know what I mean? But they're looking after number one, and they're complete traitors as far as I'm concerned.
Do you think all these leaders stepping down, do you think it's a case of rats leaving a sinking ship, or do you think it's all orchestrated that way and we're just now going to bring in the real tyrants?
Well, for instance, the Jacinda, I thought I was interviewing you, but anyway, Jacinda Ardern, or whatever her name is, in New Zealand, when she leaves, they say, oh, thank God for that. She was hell. And then the next guy, he looks more psychotic, because he might have a nicer face, but underneath they're even more evil, like Rishi. I mean, he's completely deranged, but, Liz Truss was getting a fair amount of abuse, and then all of a sudden Richie slips in, and people just seem to be letting him slide all over the place. I mean, we should be marching in the streets. They're sending tanks and shit to Ukraine. He's taking us into a war, and we're just nobody understands. We're backing what he's doing. I don't stand for Rishi sending any fucking tanks anywhere. Do you know what I mean? But again, people are so apathetic these days. The readers can get away with murder, and again, we didn't even vote for him in the first place. So where's the democracy there?
Well, I suppose it's people's tax money paying for all that stuff, so people just need to stop paying the taxes, which they shouldn't be paying anyway.
This is correct. This is all to do with learning the fraud of how all these scams have been played over us, because literally the whole system is based in fraud, and the money's fraud, and everything's mafia. They're all mafia criminals, and their plans, even more than that, they're probably controlled from reptilian beings from another dimension, but that's another story. But their plans are pure fucking, 1984 worst nightmare, just havoc and chaos. All these chemical plants going off all over the place, because part of the 2030 is like, you know, if the world's polluted, then you have to move into the smart city. So they'll have all these excuses to round you up, and you know, it's
smart
killer.
cities, concentration camps, really.
Yeah.
Prisons, open prisons.
Aye. Well, you see it in China, they're just walking around and it's like they need their QR code, and they're doing it here. Like, take your phone with you, doing a 3-day QR code trial. Here's this special thing, you've got to carry this around, and you know, just slowly drip feeding. It's the old frog in the boiling pot scenario, you know.
Yeah.
And really, when you look back, like I see some pictures of England, or you know, the video in the 60s, and it looks so peaceful and idyllic. And of course, it wasn't idyllic, but still a hell of a lot better than the way we've done with it in the past 60 years.
Or maybe we're just turning into grumpy old people, because do you remember when you were young and grumpy old people always used to say, oh, back in the old days it was much better than it is now, you know. Maybe
but it was, because this power's been taken us in a deeper and deeper worse way, you know what I mean? So I think it was better in the old days. I think outside, like I seen a wee video of this young kid at a farm, and he's helping the farm, you know, and we shouldn't really consider it work. Families and communities could be helping with the food, and it's just living, isn't it? Yeah. But it's like going to work for somebody else where your time is worth this much, and then what do you get of it? You know, it disappears, and next week you've got to go back and get the same again. You're not building for your own future. You're not looking after your own bit of land and, you know, the community thriving as a whole. We've got a harbour sitting in a local town, doesn't get used. You know, Leith docks, there's all these ports that are totally unused.
Yeah,
that we could be shipping in and out of, and you know, the industry, Scottish mines with the engineering and all the rest of it is the best in the world, but we're getting totally and utterly shat on.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. The spirit has to rise again in Scotland. You know, that Braveheart spirit. I don't know if you watched the thing at Comcast, but I wore my kilt intentionally.
No, I missed you. I didn't turn up there till the Saturday afternoon. I couldn't get there.
But I sent you the link. But anyway, the point is, I wore my kilt, and I was just saying, because I was just having a go at Scottish people. At least the COVID blew the Braveheart myth out the window, you know, because we're all saying we're going to fight anyone, and then this invisible bug comes, and we're all shutting ourselves indoors, you know.
Well, I know. I went into a supermarket with Sarah in Scotland. We were in Dunfermline, I think, or just outside, and I was expecting to see, you know, most people without the muzzles on. No, I was the only person without them on. Even Sarah was like, oh, I better put it on. And I'm like, no, don't do that. She'll tell you. But and she was like, oh, you know, people will give you dirty looks. I'm like, I don't care. I've got cataracts. I can't see them anyway. Looking at me. But there was a big guy in a kilt and the socks and everything, and I was like, lovely. Then I looked up and he's got the little mask on, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Where's Braveheart when we need him, like you said?
It's sad, isn't it? Anyway, Jacqui, it's been lovely talking to you. Is there anything else you would like to say or direct people to?
I'm going to mention my new film because I'm crowdfunding for it. So we finished the filming and it's brilliant. And if you thought the first film was dark and stark, well, this one's even darker, and it's also very dramatic, and it's also very sad as well. It's called Playing God, and it's about medical democide in the UK over the last 50 years. So we're kind of broadening out, you know, we're looking at deaths that have been caused by government protocol, basically, since the 1970s up until the present day. And we've got people speaking out about, you know, their own personal losses and experiences, and it's pretty heartrending stuff. So we've done the filming, and I raised the money myself for that, just with a crowdfunder. And so we're going to do phase 2 because we need to raise some money for the editing, which is the trickiest bit, and we hope to get that out later this year. So once we've got that done, so I'm looking forward to that. We've got great directors. There's Ash and Naeem Mahmood, and Naeem's doing another film at the moment where he filmed it back in the first lockdown. Actually, it's called Gods of Their Own Religion. So a lot of gods going on everywhere. And that's an amazing film, and that's why I thought.
What was that one? Gods have their own religion?
No, Gods of Their Own Religion.
Gods of,
yeah, it's brilliant. That should be released soon. But I think there's a bit on the internet about, you know, there might be a trailer available, I think. Yeah, really dramatic stuff. So I just thought I wanted the film not to look like the last film at all, just to be very different. We're shooting it in black and white as well. Well, we shot it in black and white, so it's got a different feel to it altogether. Yeah, very, very sort of serious. So yeah, hopefully that'll be out later this year. And then I don't know what I'm doing after that, just carrying on doing what I'm doing, writing articles, doing my show, And UNN is very, very is on the up at the moment as well. They're going to we're pushing that and getting more amazing presenters on, and they're 7 days a week now, so that's and it's getting really popular. So hopefully that'll bring in some more work for me as well. Although doing one show a week is quite tiring. How many do you do?
I just do it whenever it comes up, basically, whoever I can get here and there. I'm quite busy doing lots of other things, but I just got the opportunity from one person to another, and just obviously the more people I interview, then people see my back record, and then it allows me to get other folk on, So it's quite good.
I should get you and Sarah on my show together when we can have a Scottish special and all wear kilts. Except we'll have to wear the kilts up here because we only see this bit, don't we?
Well, I had my tartan waistcoat on your show the other night.
Yeah, you did. That was lovely, yeah.
Right.
And I've got my eye on this really nice tartan jacket, actually. It's from a Scottish place, but it's £225. I don't know if I could bring myself to pay that for a jacket. But if I do, I'll just definitely wear that. So I'll look forward to seeing Sarah on your show on Thursday as well. I'll look out for that.
Yeah.
Is there a link that people can join you on? Just
I go live on my website all the time, which is billywatson.tv/live.
Yeah.
So
promote yourself as well. Yeah. So then we can just catch you, but it's not every night, no.
No, basically, if you join my social group, then when I put a new event, there's an email goes out and reminders.
Yeah.
I've got a community board thing, so I'll invite you into that, and then you'll get reminders of my shows.
Okay. Right. Oh, I thought I was interviewing you there for a minute.
Sorry.
Bit confusing, isn't it?
It is indeed, but it's all good. Both doing similar work, so it's good to help each other, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, we're all one big family now, aren't we? I think it's nice.
That's again the thing in Derby. Was great to meet other people
lovely,
work, and there's really great that energy, as you say, positive. I think people were maybe in Oxford at the weekend was something similar,
Yeah, so, amazing that actually. But I think we should do more events like that. I'm sure they're really. I mean, Charlotte was organising it, but I'm sure it's like a headache to organise, but it was so worth it, and just such a lot of good energy, and you go away feeling really positive, don't you?
Well, you just want to wish the rest of the world could be like that, It's just so simple, isn't it? Just conscious people being nice to each other and trying to help each other, and learn and grow. To me, that's why it's a good reason. It's a good way to spend your time when you're here instead of fighting and bickering and dividing and all that stuff. Seems to be a bit of an echo. So anyway, if you stay there, I'll say goodbye. Your Twitter is quite popular. What's the handle?
Oh, my Twitter, Jacqui Deevoy1. Yeah, the number 1, not WON. That'll be good. I might change it to that.
Yeah.
And then my film is Playing God. If you just look up crowdfunder Playing God, it should pop up. And I'm also putting a book together, kind of based on the experiences of people I interviewed for the first film, and that's called Murdered by the State. I'm trying to crowdfund that as well, but I might need to restart that one because so it's just personal stories of people who've suffered at the hands of the state.
Yeah. Don't know where you get the time, but well done anyway. So thanks for joining me, Jacqui, and we'll maybe get on sometime in a few weeks to catch up on the latest madness out in the insane world out there. Cheers now. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.